Let's begin. Well, good morning, everyone. I am Steve Banta, the Executive Director of Literacy Texas. On behalf of myself and our Board of Directors, welcome to the Literacy Texas Annual Conference. We are very excited to have you join us virtually. I hope you've taken the time to explore the Crowd Compass site, see the speakers, and set up your personal schedule. iPads will be given to people attending the most sessions and completing the survey after each session. If you have any issues or questions, please go to Sponsors and click on Literacy Texas. Then click on Visit Us. It will take you to our Zoom room where Jake Stoffel or myself will be throughout the conference to offer help. In fact, he's there now. I want to express thanks to our sponsors for their support of the conference, and especially the Texas Workforce Commission, without whom this conference would not take place. Play the sponsor scavenger hunt for a chance to win an iPad. Also, enjoy the games you can play on your mobile device for other prizes. Watch your name rise to the top of the leaderboard. I also want to thank our speakers. They have gone the extra mile to adapt their sessions to the virtual format. They even spent time with a producer to give you the best possible experience. One more person to thank is Jake Stoffel, the Literacy Texas Program Director. It has been a real race to get to this point, but he's been on top of it every step of the way. Thank you, Jake. We have a very special guest today appearing via taped message, First Lady of Texas, Cecilia Abbott. The granddaughter of immigrants from Mexico, Cecilia was raised in San Antonio by parents who were both educators and who instilled in Cecilia, her sister, and two brothers, a love of learning and helping others. Cecilia studied at the University of Texas at Austin before subsequently earning 3 degrees from the University of St. Thomas in Houston, a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's degree in education, and a master's degree in theology. Cecilia then devoted her life to serving others. She has been a teacher, vice principal, and principal at several Catholic schools across Texas. Cecilia then went on to another noble calling, working in senior healthcare services, where she served as the managing director of community relations. Cecilia is a former member of the State Board Educator Certification, and also served on advisory boards for the Alzheimer's Association Capital of Texas chapter, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, Texas Regional Office, the Holy Trinity Seminary, the Catholic Diocese of Austin, Schools, Ballet Austin, and the Principal Center at Harvard Graduate School of Education. Most importantly, Cecilia is the proud mother to her daughter, Audrey, and a devoted wife to her husband of 38 years, the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott. With her husband's election as governor, Cecilia made history by becoming the first Hispanic First Lady of Texas. The Abbott family lives in Austin with the first dog of Texas, Pancake, and the first puppy of Texas, Peaches. Please welcome the First Lady of Texas, Cecilia Abbott.
Hi, I'm Cecilia Abbott, and I have the privilege of serving as the First Lady of Texas. I'm so pleased to welcome you to this virtual conference and to thank you for serving your fellow Texans. As a former teacher and principal, I have seen the difference one person can make. It is so easy to take for granted the incredible gift we are given when we were taught to read. Once you learn to read, you can then read to learn, and the door to opportunity is opened. Thank you for giving of your time and talent, for sharing the gift of literacy. My hope is that by your leadership, by serving others, you will inspire even more Texans to volunteer and to give back. The blessings we have are many, and they are multiplied when they are shared with others. The governor joins me in thanking Literacy Texas and each of you for making the Texas of tomorrow even brighter. May God bless you all.
Thank you, First Lady Cecilia Abbott. It is now my honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Shayla Rivera. Shayla was born and raised in Puerto Rico, came to the US after high school, not speaking a word of English, became an aerospace engineer for NASA, turned salesperson and corporate trainer, turned motivational speaker and comedian. Shayla says every change made in her life has been a personal turning point where she became aware of and was able to move away from the beliefs that held her back. Helping people become clear about good possibilities that exist for their lives is Shayla's life passion. She loves to make people laugh at her jokes and at themselves. Many times, those two things are the same, she says. There is nothing funnier than the truth. Shayla has graced conferences and corporate events nationwide. She speaks to students, faculty, and parents at schools from elementary to college. She has appeared on Comedy Central, Comics Unleashed, and has performed in many television programs and live theater. Proof that engineers are creative people. She is most proud of participating in numerous military comedy tours around the world, where she had the privilege of bringing a little bit of home to our troops. Please welcome Shayla Rivera.
Good morning. Thank you for that great introduction. This is great. This is when everybody stands up and claps. I'm sure you're doing it right now. Good morning. My name is Shayla Rivera, and I am absolutely thrilled and privileged. I mean, you just feel tremendously privileged to be here and honored to be in front of all of you. I know we have come together in this virtual world. We have become one place we can connect with each other just at home, which is fantastic. Now, what do I want to do with you this morning? As you can tell, I'm raring to go. It is weird because, you know, in the past, when I make presentations, it's interesting because I'm usually looking at you. Now I'm looking at myself, and that is just not cool, but that's okay. I try not to look at myself. What I want to do this morning with you is share the thing that I'm an expert in, and that is my story. My story, of course, you can't argue with. I can't argue with. My family tends to argue with it, but that's just the way it goes. Here's what I know. I am a story, you are a story, and today our stories are crossing paths, and that is momentous, and that is really important because that is what we do every day with everyone. Every time we cross paths with someone, our stories become entangled forever, which is a quantum physics principle, which we will talk about a little bit later. But this is really something to keep in mind all the time. And I live that way. I live fully aware that whenever I cross paths with anyone, whether it is in person or it is, you know, virtually right here, we are now entangled forever. And maybe one day, you know, you'll remember my face when something pops up and you have the opportunity to maybe apply something that you heard here today. So my story is your story. Also, I want you to keep that in mind. I'm going to go through my story, but I want you to pay attention to the fact that you're going to be going, oh yeah, wow, I relate to that. That's really true for me. Because what I want to do is I want to go through and then I want to tell you those moments in my story, the pearls that I've been paying attention to that I believe are the best that I have to give you today. I don't have to tell you how amazing you are. I don't have to tell you how important the work that you do is. What I want to do, though, is remind you of what a hero you are every day that maybe you're not thinking about. You don't think about every day the impact that you have on someone for the rest of their lives. That's important. So let's start my story. My story began a long time ago. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. Actually, my full name is Shayla May Rivera Martinez, Martinez Cortez, Romero Reventos, Murphy, because at one point I married a Texan. It was an interesting wedding because he was Irish Catholic. I'm Puerto Rican Catholic, means half the family was drunk before the wedding and the other half stole their cars. It was fun. Of course, everything I'm telling you here today is true. So I want you to know that about me. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, and the way that I got to Texas was a little bit traumatic. So let me take you through that. When I was 17, I graduated high school in Puerto Rico. Now, in Puerto Rico, when you graduate high school, you actually go to your graduation first, and then you go to your senior prom. So I graduated, I go to my senior prom. My senior prom ended at 4:30 in the morning because we like to party like that. You know that if you know any Puerto Ricans. But at 7:30 that very same morning, my parents had me in a plane leaving Puerto Rico forever, moving me to Houston, Texas. You know what they say about Houston? Life is too short to live in Houston. Not true. I love Houston. But I got to Houston, Texas. Now I want you to understand how that felt like. I left everything that I knew. I had lived an intense life of family, of language, of culture, of food, of music, and everything, leaving it completely to move on to a new world. Texas was a new world. The US was a new world. Texas was, even more of a different type of world, which was actually fantastic. But this is what it felt like. I want you to go back and think about when you were 17. Imagine you go home, you're 17, and your mom says, okay, honey, tomorrow we're all moving to China and you're going to live the rest of your life in China. And you say, well, wait a minute, Mom, that's going to be a problem because I don't speak Chinese. Okay, so I use that example because I want you to think about that. I want you to think about being 17 and being told, okay, you're moving now somewhere where you have no idea what it's like. You don't know the language, you don't know the culture, you don't know anything. And, I did. I told my mom, hey, wait a minute, I don't speak Chinese. And my mom was very supportive, like every Puerto Rican mother. She said, I don't care. She really didn't care. You're going to have to handle it. She trusted me to handle it. She knew that I was going to handle it, but she did give me 2 weeks. She said, my mother, she said, you got 2 weeks to get over it. That was my mom. My mom would do that all the time. If you had any problems, you always got 2 weeks. If you had a rash, you got 2 weeks. You got a stomach ache, you got 2 weeks. Whatever you got, you got 2 weeks. So she gave me 2 weeks, and I got to Humble, Texas, in Houston, near Houston. And I remember the year was 1979. That's right. That was a long time ago. Some of you know that. Some of you are of my sexy generation. That's what I call it. It's 1979, and I'm sitting there in Humble watching TV. Since she gave me 2 weeks, I sat down and I started watching TV. Now, I don't know what's going on TV so much because I don't really speak the language. Now, I do want to say that in Puerto Rico, we learn English. We know the window, we know the door, we know things like that. But as far as a mastery of the language, absolutely none. So I'm sitting there, I'm watching TV. And I remember that one day early in my, depression, I was watching this show, and you remember this show, The Gong Show. The Gong Show back in 1979 was interesting. And I'm watching it because it was visually interesting. I don't know what they're saying half the time, but I'm seeing that there's some interesting things going on TV. And I see that the guy introduces the next act. And out comes a woman that is just very, very large, wearing a thong bikini. Well, maybe it wasn't a thong bikini, but when she walked, it became a thong bikini. Well, she comes out and she sits at this grand piano and she plays it like a maestro. She was just like, wow. And I had a moment where I said, whoa. I'm missing out on something here because I'm seeing what's going on there, but I don't really know why it's happening. What is happening? Wait a minute, what is this? And I made a decision in that moment. I said, that's it. That's it. I am not going to live afraid of a language. I am going to master this language. I am going to do it right. I'm not going to talk like this. I'm going to do it right. So I was so enraged with my own fear, about my own fear, that I just said, that's it. And I turned off the television. And I got into my room and I got books in English and I started reading out loud. Now, half the time I didn't know what I was reading. But the thing is that what I had decided to do was that, in Spanish, if you all speak Spanish, anybody that speaks Spanish knows this, when you speak a different language, the muscles of your mouth are different. They're used in a different way. En español, tú sabes, hacen lo que le da la gana. But in English, if you want to sound intelligent and, erudite, you have to train the muscles of your mouth somehow. So that's what I did. I would read out loud. And, that not only helped me train the muscles of my mouth so that I could pronounce things properly, but also it expanded my comprehension of the language itself. And here's what happened. Here's the quantum leap. Here is the miracle. 5 months later, only 5 months later, I find myself at Texas A&M University, having a conversation, in the middle of a conversation with one of my professors. And in the middle of that conversation, I wake up. Have you ever done that? Have you ever been somewhere and then you get there? That's living in the present moment. That is something that we all need to master, definitely. But I'm in the middle of that conversation and I go, whoa, check me out. I'm actually carrying on a conversation in English with this guy. How sexy am I right now? And then I had another thought. And the thought said, wow, if you can do this, you can do anything. Yes, that was important. That was important because I had just gotten into aerospace engineering and I wasn't sure. I mean, I was afraid and all that stuff, but I thought I just mastered a language. That's what I told myself. I just mastered a language. If I can do this, I can do anything. And then I had another thought. And this is where spirit comes in, because it really wasn't my thought. This thought came from somewhere else. And we all have experienced that, where you just kind of almost hear a whisper. And this whisper said something to me, which is what's brought me to everything I've done, including today here in front of you. That whisper has been the cause of the intention and the purpose of my life. And that whisper said to me, remember, if you can do anything, then anybody can do anything. And I truly received that. And I truly was amazed by that thought. And I truly believe that thought. I know for sure that if anybody has done anything, anybody else can do that very thing if that person really wants to do it and put in the time and the effort and whatnot. But we are all level at that place where anybody can do anything they truly decide they want to do. Now, why do I call that a quantum leap? Because I know for sure that I learned and mastered the language the moment I said, that's it. The moment I said, se acabó, no more. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm doing this. And it only took 5 months for me to, execute the plan, to go through the process and get there. So I know that was a quantum leap. I know that that was something that I can say happened in an instant, like much and many of our, the greatest things that we accomplish happen in that instant when we say, we're going to accomplish that. I'm going to drink a little water. Okay. So in that moment, everything was seared for me. So let's continue the story. Okay. So I went to Texas A&M University. I studied aerospace engineering and got a minor in psychology. And I loved that. I went to work after that. I went to work for McDonnell Douglas at NASA. I went to work for the space shuttle program. And then after that, I got to work with the space station program. I even got to work with the Apache helicopter program for a while. And the interesting thing is that, I was excited wherever I was, whenever I was, anywhere. I am like that right now. I'm excited right now. I'm always excited. I live that way. I don't know if it's my DNA. I don't know what it is, but I'm always amazed at and grateful for being where I'm at. I surrender to the moment as much as I can because, I'm just not, I don't have the power to control everything. So I studied aerospace and psychology because I figured I'd come in handy someday when we find life on another planet that needs therapy, of course, right? Be like, E.T., why won't you call your mother? Anyway, from there, when I got to NASA, I remember this moment. There was another searing moment for me the very first week I got to work for, when I started working for the Space Shuttle program. It was the very first week. It was Friday. Was my full week. I'm driving to work at 7:30 in the morning. And, I was driving this huge Chrysler Newport my mother had given me. I don't know, it was huge. And I'm driving it. And I have this thought, 7:30, I go, wow, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Ugh. And then I realized that I wasn't going to do that for the rest of my life. But I was so excited to be where I was. See, but I paid attention to that. And we need to pay attention to the things when our spirit talks to us. It's not that I needed to change right then. I just kind of needed to pay attention to become aware that maybe there might be something in the future. But anyway, I continued. I went to, I work, at NASA. I worked with all these programs. I enjoyed them all. But as time passed, things got a little more uncomfortable for me. And it was uncomfortable because it was like, man, something is missing. I didn't know what was missing. I'm like, but I started paying attention to that. And I started realizing that what was missing for me was this people interaction. I just kind of, not that engineers are not people and don't interact and stuff, please. But it's a different environment. I like the connection, the human connection was missing for me. So I said, I need to find something else. Of course, you're not going to just, leave aerospace and just not, do something completely opposite or whatever, because my mother would have wanted her tuition money back and we don't want to talk about that. But what I did is I started looking. See, when you get these feelings, you start looking. If you look, you're going to find, because that's the way it works. So I started looking. I didn't know where I was going to go. And then I heard somebody says, well, why don't you try technical sales? I promise you, I'm taking you somewhere. I try technical sales. So I'm like, okay, well, what is that? Well, technical sales, as you know, is something that, you have to have a technical degree to be able to sell whatever you're selling, because you're not selling a stuff products, you're selling solutions. So what else does an aerospace engineer sell but oil and gas products? I got into oil and gas product sales, environmental systems, gas chromatographs, pH, conductivity, stuff I had no idea about, something that I never studied in school either. But see, I had understood that I could always find the answers. I can always be trained to learn something new. So I allowed myself to go in that direction and I loved it. It was wonderful because I was finally free. I got to get a car and I took people to lunch and I even learned to play golf and all that stuff, which is really important. But the best thing that sales did for me was that it started me on track I had never been on before, which was all these sales training meetings. We would get all these seminars and these, modules and things to learn about the sales process. And always the sales process has to do with the salesperson, right? If you want to increase your sales, you got to become a better person and deal with your fears and things like that. And then it exposed me also to something I had never seen before, which was a motivational speaker. Now, the first motivational speaker I ever saw was Zig Ziglar. I know some of you know him. You have to know him. And if you don't know him, you should look him up. Zig Ziglar is an amazing man. And I love Zig Ziglar because he was exciting and he was fun and he was funny and he would tell stories and he was engaging. To me, he spoke the way that I like to be spoken to. I don't need to be told the 7 steps and the 5 things and the 12. Those things are important, but I am more of a paint a picture in my head. So he was great at that. And I remember seeing him and I went to see him one day and I'm sitting in the back of this huge room where there's about 3,000 people. And to me, he's really tiny. He's just, I'm in the cheap seat. So I'm like listening to him and I'm feeling what's going on. And I'm all of a sudden become fully aware of the fact that there's a man over there in that stage. He doesn't have a PowerPoint. I hate PowerPoint. He doesn't have dancing people in the back. He doesn't have something going on. He's just himself and he's just got words and just using words coming out of his mouth. He's changing things. Things are changing in this room. Things are changing in here. Things are changing. You're feeling something. There's something happening. And I realized, wow, the power of words. Words have such an important power, and we all have that power. It struck me hard, like, wow, we all have the power of words. Words can build, they can destroy, they can elevate, they can, motivate, they can depress. Words, we all have it. And we don't live presently aware of that so much. I mean, here's an example. I work with a guy. I love this guy. He's great. He's a vegan. And if you're a vegan, I'm cool with you. I have no problem with that. But he has a problem with people who are not. So every time we go to lunch with this person, it is, oh my God, and you people and the do and they want, and it's just so amazing. So finally, one day I said, dude, isn't it interesting that you care so much about what goes into your mouth, but you don't really care about what comes out? I was amazed. I was struck by that. I know that we all have the power and we don't use it on purpose most of the time. So that day when I saw Zig Ziglar and I got that, I said, I want to do that one day. There's another one of those moments. Every time I get one of these thoughts, I put it in some Pandora's box I have in the back of my head. And I just thought, isn't that interesting that I would want to become a speaker, when a few years ago, I, was struggling to, afraid that I didn't know the language or whatever, but I paid attention to that. I didn't know how to become a speaker. I don't know what to do, but I knew that I liked what he was doing. I want to go in that direction. Again, when you seek, you find. When you knock, the door is open, right? All right. So I keep going. I'm in sales and everything. And in the 80s, I'm in the 80s. So, this is where the networking began. Networking groups popped up everywhere. And I remember joining a group of women who we would get together at a gallery every Wednesday, and we would listen to a speaker, and then we would drink mimosas and go to work. It was great. But we would just get together. And that day, there was this one time that this speaker came in. His name is Robert Pennington. Fully recommend Robert Pennington for you to look him up. Stress management expert. Robert Pennington came in and gave us a chat. Robert Pennington lives in Houston, and this is a speaker who got shot point blank, center of the chest, and survived. And he tells his story, and he talks about learning about stress. And his message was so amazing that I was enthralled. And so what I did, the way that I usually do things, is the next morning, I showed up at his office and I said, hi, my name is Shayla Rivera, and I'm so excited because I'm here because I want to work here. And he said, who are you? I said, I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself yesterday. My name is Shayla Rivera. You came and spoke to my team, and we were so excited. And what you spoke about resonated with me. It's just something that I know that I love, and I just want to work here. I want to do what you do. I want to work here. He said, no. I'm not hiring anybody. I didn't really, go there to look for anybody. I said, yes, you are. You're hiring me because I'm here. I really want to work with you. You don't understand. I really, this is me. Sometimes I'm crazy like that. And then he said something that he thought would work. He says, no, well, listen, honey. He didn't say honey. He said, listen, I don't have money to pay another, person. And that's when I messed with him a little bit. That's when the funny came in. And I said, well, there's always a little money somewhere. You don't want me to work for free. I think that would be illegal. I'm not sure that that's right. I would have to tell somebody. Anyway, I made him laugh. We talked a while and he hired me. I got hired that day to become a corporate trainer for stress management trainings that were life transforming. They lasted a whole week. We had tremendous companies in Texas and around the nation, but mainly in Texas at that time. It was mainly engineering firms. I remember it was Exxon and Bechtel and Enron even. I saved lives. It was a beautiful life transforming stress management training. So this is what I want you to understand. I want you to understand that now I'm a corporate speaker. I'm a corporate trainer for stress management, but I'm teaching with these people, right? But you teach, that's how you learn, right? When you're teaching. The whole time I'm there as part of the team, but I'm also listening. I'm also learning. I'm present. I love the message they're talking about. So I remember that every time we opened this training, and this training, again, like I said, was 5 days, 8 hours for 5 days, the same 25, 30 people. It was intensely life transforming. But they always began with the same phrase. And the phrase was this: what you are unaware of controls you. What you become aware of, you can change. Every time that he opened with that, I went like, huh, there is something there for me. What I'm unaware of controls me. What I become aware of, I can change. So I left that. I wanted to understand that. Of course, I understand it at a certain level, but there was something there for me. And I understood that gift when I went to see Zig Ziglar the next time I saw him. The next time I saw Zig Ziglar, he was talking about how we are like fleas. And he talked about flea circuses. He said, you know, there are some things out there that are flea circuses. And if you don't know, it's true. I mean, there are flea circuses. There's like tarps and everything. And fleas perform in this circus. And, you know, they do the trapeze and they do the little, you know, they jump through hoops or whatnot. But the important thing is not the circus. The important thing is, how do you train a flea for a circus, right? I mean, okay, I'm biting. How do you do? Well, the way you train a flea for a circus is you have to capture the flea and you have to put it in a jar. Now, fleas are naturally limitless creatures, right? Fleas jump really high. So they're really tiny, but their leap is really mighty. So that's pretty limitless. If we were a flea, if I was a flea and compare the size of my body to the leap of the flea, I would jump about 52 stories up in the air, which is pretty limitless, right? But the way you train a flea is you capture it and you put it in a jar. As soon as you put it in a jar, you put the lid on the jar. As soon as you put the lid on the jar, you can put your ear to the lid and you hear the flea, right? It's trying to get out. Doesn't know where it's at. It's just jumping. Put the jar away. Come back the next day. Put their ear to the lid and they would hear, right? The flea is slowing down. The trainer knows the training is working. You can put the jar away, come back the next day, or maybe 2 days later. It's all it's going to take until that trainer comes back, puts his ear to the lid and hears nothing. At that point, he knows the flea is trained because he knows he can take the lid off of that jar and that flea in that jar will never, ever, 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 nunca más jump higher than it learned to jump in just 2 or 3 days. Now think about this. In just 2 or 3 days, a flea goes from being limitless naturally to being conditioned to believe that this is how high you jump. Now, what happens in the jar is not that the flea stops trying or stop jumping. What happens in the jar is that the flea learns to jump only as high as it needs to jump to not hit the lid. So the flea in the jar is still doing its best inside of the jar. But once you take the lid off of that jar, that flea never, ever jumps higher. And he said to us, and you are just like that. And boy, I said, I get it. Yes, I am. I got it completely. I understood exactly what he meant. Maybe he was talking about one jar. And by the way, it doesn't matter what size the jar is. It could be an inch, it could be 4 inches, it could be 12. The flea in the jar never jumps higher. And we are like that. I saw a spice rack of jars on the wall of my life. I said, wow, I understand. I understand that we all are. We're born limitless. We're born without prejudice. We're born without notions and whatever we think. And, you know, you can't wear red and pink together or you can't walk out, you know, bare. We have no preconceived ideas when we are born. We are born completely free and open. But then we are conditioned to believe things, to stay within certain parameters, and that is determined by our culture, by our family, by our economic circumstances, by our, you know, all of the experiences of our lives. Everything shapes how high we're going to jump about a thing. See, I saw a bunch of jars on the wall of my life, and every jar was a different size, and every jar had a different label, and every jar held for me what I was believing about that thing. I had been conditioned. I got it. See, Zig Ziglar made me aware of my jars. I was unaware that I was in these little places about everything about me. And trust me, I grew up in pain, in so much pain. You have no idea, but we'll get to that. So I became aware of my jars. I said, wow, wait a minute, there's no lid on my jars, but I'm still jumping only this high for different things. See, we get conditioned, right? We get conditioned. Our parents, we do it as a parent. I'm a parent. You know, we do it. We're protecting our children or whatever. The simplest example I can give you is, you know, a mother, and here's the kid trying to touch the hot stove, and don't touch it. No toques. You're going to get burnt. No lo toques, right? You turn it. You're protecting that child. My dad used to say, let her touch it one time, she'll learn. And he was right. But here's the difference. The difference is that when we learn about something by being, you know, stopped before we experience it, it's a different level of understanding. See, we have accepted another person's rule about it. I'm not saying let the kid touch the hot. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that's how we have been put into this spice rack of jars that define who you are. I am fully aware that I am a big spice rack of jars, and I'm also fully aware that so are you. That you are nothing but a set of experiences. You are nothing but a set of beliefs that have been given to you. And many of those beliefs we have jumped out of, or we have questioned, or we have whatever. But the thing is, we believe what we are told implicitly. We believe, and then within that belief, we do our best. And when you become aware of this, you can then affect change. See, when you are helping someone to learn to read, your jars and their jars are coming together. If you're aware of the fact that they have whatever they have that gets on your nerves, especially, that's their jar, has nothing to do with you, right? It's about getting to know that. It's about getting to understand that we are pretty much all the same mess of jars. It's just, they're all different. We all, you know, we put love, we have a jar labeled love and one labeled money, and what you learned about money and love. And, you know, God, we have a jar labeled God. We put God in a jar sometimes. We, you know, we define, I'm going to tell you what it is, or, you know, and to me, that's, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but it's like, to me, when I become aware of that, I understand that, you know, this isn't, you know, the way it is. Nobody's really trying to hurt me. My work is to go into my jars and see what do I need to do? See, you know, you're in a jar when you're in pain. What is pain? Pain is, you're annoyed, you're upset, you're mad, you're just, you know, any kind of negative emotion should trigger the awareness to say, oh, I might be in a jar right now. You don't have to understand, you know, what it is that it's triggering you right now. But if you start seeking, guess what? You're going to find. So I started doing that. I started trying to find, why was I always feeling so inadequate? Why did I always feel like I wasn't good enough, an imposter and all that? Believe me, I was. And then I realized that, you know, a lie repeated over and over and over again becomes a truth. You know that, right? I mean, for instance, the truth that the world used to be flat. Now, the world was never flat. The earth was never flat, but it was. It was flat when it had to be flat. We were told we were flat. Well, not we, but they did. And it was flat, 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 flat. And here's the thing. The problem with that is not, you know, that it's going to change the earth. The problem is that then we start acting according to the lie. So merchants wouldn't go too far because they might fall off the edge of the earth, right? Science was done for a flat earth, so it wouldn't work. All of these things were the foundation, and what we're starting from wasn't real, so it doesn't work. So it just becomes, you know, limiting. And that's how we get limiting beliefs. That's how it comes. So, you know, and I'm asking you today, what lies might you be believing? You know, I'm gonna give you an example. In 1989, my mother passed away. And when she passed away, there's 4 of us at home. And she, you know, when she passed away, what we all received this bag. She had these canvas bags that she had saved all of our stuff in. You know, moms, we do that. We save the macaroni art and the turkey hand and the ugly, you know, school pictures and whatever she thinks is important, and the grades and stuff. And I start going through my bag. I'm going through my bag and I'm sad. My mom just passed away, right? And I start pulling out, you know, ugly pictures and things like that. And then I finally get to my report cards. And when I start pulling out my report cards, I'm befuddled. I like that word. I'm totally blown away. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, because I'm looking at my grades, right? And I'm seeing that I had mostly A's, few B's, a C here and there. I'm not perfect. But I graduated high school with a 3.86 average. Not bad. It got me into A&M engineering, aerospace, right? I mean, come on now. But I grew up knowing that I was dumb. I wasn't intelligent. I was, you know, borderline, you know, bruta, you know, stupid. I mean, just like, I did not think that I was intelligent at all. Why? Because my older sister, yeah, that one. My older sister always had a 4.0. Now, my sister never got a B in a class. She has summa cum laude. She was all this stuff in high school. And, you know, my sister actually got a B in a test once. I remember she was like in 11th grade. It was a math test and she came in crying, and oh my God, it was a horrible scene in my house. And we all had to swear we wouldn't talk about it, you know, whatever. We took the paperwork out in the backyard and buried it. Anyway, she had a 4.0, and I was always compared to that. Why can't you be like that? Why can't you be like your sister? Why can't you just do? See, my sister would come home and go straight to study, right, to the room, and I wanted to ride my bike. But why can't you be like her? And so to me, that meant that was smart and I was not. See, this is where words are so important. Mom, I know my mother wasn't trying to make me feel dumb. I know she was trying to make me do better and do my best, right? She wanted me to have better grades. But this is where words matter. She could have said, you know, you're so close. You're so close to being like right up there. Why don't you want to try it a little bit harder? Maybe, you know, maybe I can help you or whatever. But not just, why can't you be like that? So I grew up knowing that I was dumb, that I did not belong where I was. Now I know we're thinking, wait a minute, you studied aerospace, you've done all these things you've done and everything, but I promise you that like the merchants that wouldn't go too far because of the edge of the earth, I did not do as well as I could have done. I did not enjoy it as much as I could have. I didn't blossom like I could have blossomed had I had that notion that I belonged where I was. I always felt like this imposter. I don't anymore. I mean, that day I went like, oh, I am smart. But it was a whole lifetime, and those things creep up on you still. And all of those things affected me in different ways. What I want you to get out of this is that what we're unaware of is what is determining how far we're going to go, you know, a lot of times. So getting into understanding our limiting beliefs, the things that, you know, maybe are holding us back. And again, these are just little jars. And again, it's just pain. And the best thing that can happen to you is that you're annoyed with somebody or something. This is happening for me, not happening to me. See, a little switch in the wording. That's the way I live now. I really do. I've been living that way all of my life, but it came from pain. It came from feeling, you know, just like I wasn't, you know, good enough. So what lies might you be believing? Because I have to tell you that until you challenge the things that are holding you back, you're not going to change them unless you become fully aware of them, accept them, and then go, okay, I'm gonna try my best to change it. Then I'll, you're not gonna change anything. Now, Josh, I see there's a whole lot of things here. I don't know what PD means, but it's popping up a lot. It's distracting me. People, what is PD? Anyway, I'm kidding. Let's continue. This is what I know for sure. I went on to doing corporate trainings for stress management, all right? And then at night, continuing my story, I started doing motivational speaking. I found a way, right? I said, okay, well, and I would go and do little motivational speaking engagements in, little offices and stuff like that. I was doing what I had thought that day I wanted to do, like Zig Ziglar. So see, life just kind of was leading me to that place. So I was so happy. And then people started coming to me and saying, oh, you should be a comedian. And I'm like, hey, I'm trying to be enlightening. Idiot, what's wrong with you? You're not getting me. I was so offended every time somebody said, you should be a comedian. But I heard it over and over again. I heard it many times. And then I started letting it sink in. I started going, okay, well, maybe I should try it someday. Maybe I should try stand-up. I don't know anything about stand-up comedy. I started watching it. I started seeing George Carlin was, I loved Carlin. Early Carlin would kill me. And my dad loved comedy. My family loved it because we're gregarious. We like to joke around. So I finally, said to myself enough times, well, maybe I should. So I let the should hit the fan and I took a risk. And I tried stand-up comedy, and I've been doing stand-up comedy since 1993. So, what is that, 27 years, something like that. I'm about to be an overnight sensation. I'm continuing the story for you. See, in that moment, this is one of those things I got to tell you. One of the things you got to do in life is don't should on yourself. I said should. Don't should on yourself too much. Take a risk. Every time you keep going, well, maybe I should try this. Maybe I should. You need to let that should hit the fan and try something. Take a risk. What's the worst that can happen? You might discover something tremendous about you. So I started doing comedy, and I was doing my motivational speaking at the same time. And since then, I've been doing that for a very long time. And one day I was invited to come to my alma mater to make a presentation. And when I made the presentation, somebody said, oh my God, you should teach here. And I'm like, what? Are you crazy? I mean, come on now. I just have a bachelor's of science. That's dumb, isn't it? I mean, is that possible? So I came back to A&M a couple more times. And finally I met the dean of the College of Engineering, who said, I hear you want to work here. And I said, sure, I do, of course. She said, when do you want to start? I'm like, tomorrow. And she wasn't kidding. So now I work in my alma mater in the College of Engineering as a professor of practice and a director of a program. Why do I tell you this? I tell you this because you don't know where you're going to go. I did not know I was going to go into comedy. I did not know I was going to do what I'm doing right now. But if you trust and you allow yourself to grow and be who you are, then, life will take you in those directions that you really want to go into that you don't even know you want to right now. And this is important. This is important. I'm not just talking about, I'm talking to you, for you, but also I want you to always keep that perspective that everybody that you come in touch with, you impact. Everybody that, meets you, you affect in a direct way and in a positive or negative way. And it is up to you if you're doing it on purpose. You see, I know one thing. Let's talk about quantum physics a little bit. What I'm really excited about now is I have been able to look for and find evidence of the fact that, it's always been the same thing, science and spirituality, or science and us, it's all the same thing. See, in 1927, the Fifth Solvay Conference in Brussels, Belgium. There's a quantum physics conference, all right? The turn of the century, 1900s, was when, quantum physics was really making its name, and you had a lot of people studying it. Now, physics, mechanical physics is physics of the large, and you have Einstein and theoretical physics, they talk about planets and gravitational things and whatever. Now, quantum physicists talk about the small. They go tiny, 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 right? And so these two physics were trying to work together. So they come together in this conference, 1927. And the reason they were coming together is because the quantum physicists were saying to the theoretical physicists that there is an issue that we need to talk about. See, theoretical physicists like Einstein like equations, right? They like predictability. So why do they like equations? Because, well, an equation, you can predict. If it's the same equation, if I have an equation and, Steve Banta has an equation and we plug in the numbers into these equations and they are the same numbers we're plugging in, we're going to get the same results, right? I mean, that's the way an equation works. And but the quantum physicists were saying, yeah, we know that, but we're finding something else. We're finding actually that the observer is affecting the results of experiments. The results are being affected by the minds of the observers. And of course, Einstein and other theoretical physicists were like, okay, that's crazy. That's ridiculous. See, let me explain what that means. That means that if I'm an observer, I'm a scientist, and Steve is another scientist, and we're running an experiment, right? And Steve tells me, okay, Shayla, I've already plugged in all the numbers into the equations, and I know that experiment is going to behave clockwise. And I'm going, no, Steve, you don't know what you're talking about, because I plugged in those same numbers into those equations. I know that experiment's going to behave counterclockwise. This is what happens. What happens is when Steve goes into the laboratory, runs his experiment, the experiment behaves clockwise. When I go into the same laboratory, I run the same experiment using the same equipment, the same parameters, doing it exactly like he did it. My results are counterclockwise. See, the observer is affecting the results that they're getting. This is nothing new. I'm sure your mom told you, like my mom told me, in life you find what you're looking for. Be careful what you pray for. Watch out what you're thinking about. See, our consciousness affects even in science. But we've always known that. We are the observers. We're all in the same laboratory. We all have access and are using the same equipment, and we're all getting different results. And we're all getting different results because we are, maybe our jars are different. Our experiences are different. And that's all we are. I get invited a lot of times to talk about diversity because I'm a female and I'm Latino and whatever. And the thing is, this is how I see diversity. I don't see diversity in the sense of, gender and race and ethnicity and all that. I see the difference in us. The diversity is in our experience. We are all observers. All of us are observers. And we can only see through the glasses of our expectations. And our expectations come through our experiences, which is okay. You don't want to get mad at yourself that I always expect traffic and I get traffic. Change that. Change it. Change the way you're expecting things to happen, and you will see them happen differently. That is just the way it works. See, we like to talk about statistics. We like to lump people into these things because numbers work and, whatever. But you all know this more than anybody else, that statistics do not apply to the individual. Statistics do not apply to the observer. If an observer says, no, I'm not going to be like that, I'm going to learn this, I'm going to manage this, I'm going to handle that, the observer will do what the observer says they're going to do. Statistically, you can be in a group here and a group there and whatnot, but you don't have to be act and feel the way that or according to what you're told that you're supposed to. See, that's where I'm a rebel. I'm a rebel, and it's probably why I've gotten to where I've gotten, because I have this aversion to being told that something cannot be done, or that somebody cannot do something, or that, you know, whatever. No, I have seen proof that every individual has, I look for that. I look for it, and I encourage you to do the same thing. And mostly in your life, look for the times that you became the person who said, this is it. When you made a change, when you took a leap, when you took a risk, you know, because if you live that way, if you live like this, then when life punches you, like life likes to punch us all, you're going to be better. You know, right now we're in the middle of a situation. And what struck me as soon as we went into the pandemic situation, I got a lot of emails and a lot of calls from students telling me, I just have never lived through something like this. And I would have to tell them, none of us have. None of us have, right? So this is all new for all of us. These are, you know, I like to equal it to, like, you know, the analogy I use with them, and I'll share it with you, is this, you know, what do you get when you squeeze an orange? Well, in the chat, I'm sure you will tell me, you get orange juice. And my question to you is why? Why do you get orange juice when you squeeze an orange? Come on. Well, I mean, it's an orange, it's whatever. Yeah, well, here's the thing. Here's the way I want you to think about it. The reason you get orange juice when you squeeze an orange, it's because that is what is in there. That is what's inside the orange. And just like that, when life squeezes us, what you get out is what you have inside. So if you say, I'm just going to handle it, just going to do it, or whatever, or if you say, oh my God, I'm never going to be, you know, then that's what you have inside. Now, it isn't good or bad. Neither one is. What you need to apply then is awareness. Awareness of what's coming out of you in the moments that are critical in your life. Awareness will tell you the work you've done and the work that you still have to do. Is life happening to you, or is life happening for you? Let life happen for you, and then you will be almost invincible. You know, I was, what was it, 7 years ago that I went to, you know, get a mammogram, which is always so much fun for us to do. And I went out there, and they found something, and it was, you know, they were, you know, the biopsy and whatever they did. And, you know, I was just going through a process. I remember the day they were going to tell me about the results of the biopsy, and I get to the place, and the doctor is really somber, and, you know, he says, come on in this room, we'll talk. And then the nurse followed, and she grabbed the box of tissue and everything, and I'm sitting there going, yeah, I wonder what they're going to tell me, right? By this time, I have done so much work on stress management, on so much work on learning to breathe when a moment is rough, you know, just, I had really done the work to be able to, you know, go through these moments, knowing that it's just a moment, and that the most important thing is, what am I going to do now? Because in the circumstance is not it. What am I going to do according? So anyway, we go in the room, and he says, well, we found a, you know, a tumor, and it's malignant, you have breast cancer. And I said, okay, well, tell me what I have to do, and I'll just give it my best. And it just blew, he went like, he didn't think I heard him. He said, you understand that it's breast cancer? So yeah, you still have breast cancer now. Tell me what I have to do, and I'll give it my best, because that's all I can do. I really have gotten to that place, you know. So I'm cancer-free now. Thank you very much. But you know, I just kind of gave it my best, and maybe my attitude. I know, I will say my attitude had a lot to do with the way that I was able to work through this. I wasn't really scared. I was only concerned about my kids. I didn't want my kids to suffer. You know, mom is sick. I don't want them to feel bad. So I, you know, put my best foot forward. But what I'm telling you is that if you become aware of these things, if you give yourself the idea that, you know, whenever you're uncomfortable or you're in a bad negative place, you're just in a jar, right? You're in a jar, then life is not gonna, you know, knock you down every time. Now, life does knock you down sometimes in a way that you can't there's nothing you can do about it. Some things are really tremendously awful. 2 years ago, I was doing a comedy show in Lake Tahoe, and I returned home to Austin at 12 o'clock at midnight, and I have to drive to College Station where I live. And I got home at 2:30 in the morning to find the body of my son laying right here where I'm sitting here talking to you. He had passed away maybe an hour or 2 hours. And I cannot tell you the ripping that happens in your heart, but I know now that I'm not alone. There are so many people out there that I've lost like that. And when I say like that, I mean, what do you do in that moment? You can't do anything. You have to surrender. You have to breathe. You have to understand that life does this to all of us, and that we never know who we're talking to. We never know what experiences they've gone through. The first year when after losing my son was very difficult. I know I'm not alone. But you know, I remember it was a few months after he passed. I'm getting ready to go to work, and I'm listening to something, you know, inspirational. And I remember it was Joel Osteen, and I remember he said something like, you know, if you have a child that's gone in a different direction, whatever, you can just do this, that, and the other thing. And I said, yeah, but he's not with me anymore. And then I heard the whisper, and the whisper said, no, but he's with me. So that gave me great solace. That gave me great understanding. I know one thing I've always wanted to understand. I've always prayed to God, please, I want to understand things so that I can explain them and maybe make a little bit of a difference in people's lives. And one of the things I realized is that you can't really understand something unless you live through it. So I understand the pain, and I understand the beauty of having had the privilege of having something like that in your life. My son was exceptional and incredible, but you know, look at me, this is what I do for my life. And here I lost my son. My son didn't commit suicide, but he is the reason that he passed away. So what do I do? Can I talk to people? You know, am I a hypocrite again? An imposter? And then I realized that, you know, the greatest lesson from this, or one of the important lessons out of this, was that, you know, look, I would have done anything for my son. Love my son. Right there, you see him right there. We were buddies. We were fun. If he had told me, Mom, I have this issue and I can't carry it, I would have carried it for him. All of you know that. You have kids, you would do it. There's nothing I wouldn't have done. But here's the thing that I learned, that to a certain extent, and there's a limit, right? I can't do it for anybody else. You have to do it for you. He had to do it for himself. He had his own story. He had his own adventure. He had his own reasons, you know, for his pain and his jars and all of that. And I see that. I can see that. But unless he saw it, and unless he started doing something else about it, I couldn't help him. So I'm okay. And one day when I go away, don't be sad for me. I'll be having a party up in heaven. But I have a daughter. I love my daughter. Very difficult for her as well. But you know what? Your kids give you so much awareness. I mean, the people in your life are the opportunity for you to learn different things. My daughter is gay. She told me she was gay, and I said, no, you're not. And this was in high school. And, you know, I told her she was not going to do that, and this was wrong and everything. And then, you know, she cried and told me, I just want you to love me the way that I am. And I realized, of course, I love her the way that she is. So what I'm trying to tell you is that let life be your greatest teacher. Let the people in your life the people in my life have given me the greatest gifts of awareness and motivation and everything. People introduce me sometimes as a motivational speaker, and I'm really not a motivational speaker, because I used to go to motivational speeches and get all motivated, and then it would go away, and I couldn't really understand until I did understand, because motivation is about what you can do. We can do all of the things we can. But your life and awareness and everything is really about what you do. Yes, I said do. I had to work it into the whole presentation. It's what you do. It's what you actually do that will make a difference in your life. We are individuals. We are observers. And more than anything else, we are a story. And my question to you is, are you writing your story? Or are all the jars writing your story? Are the things that you've been taught and conditioned to think writing it for you? Take the pen in your hands and write it yourself. That's how you influence everyone else. I like to keep these things in my desk. These are little jars. You can see right there's a little jar with a little worry doll in there, and I give them away at part of my lectures. If I was in front of you, you would all get one of these things. But I do it because the reminders are important. So I want you to remember the jars. I want you to remember the fleas and the jars, that we are, sometimes in those tight spaces. But I want you to know that there's no lid on your jar. A worry doll, they make them in Central America, and they give them to little kids. When they're worried, parents go, here, honey, put this under your pillow, give your worries to this thing. And then the next day, I think they bury it or destroy it somehow. But I put a worry doll in here because I want you to remember that the only thing that belongs tightly sealed in a jar are your worries. That's it. Because we will survive everything that comes. And if I'm sitting here, if I'm talking to you, then let me be part of the evidence for you. If I have survived this, and so far, which I have, I'm going to continue. And so can you. Because if anybody can do anything, anybody else can do that very same thing if they really want to do it. I cannot tell you how honored I am that I've been able to speak to you while I'm looking at myself. It really means everything to me. I remain open to all of you. Josh, I'm going to open it for any questions that you might have right now. We only have 7 minutes for questions, but if there's any questions that you have, I guess please put them in the chat right now, and I will attempt to answer them. But, don't take yourself seriously. You are making a big difference in people. You're becoming part of somebody else's hero's journey. Yes, sir.
Well, Josh dropped off, but thank you so much for sharing this. I need to read you one of the comments.
Okay.
Shayla, I needed to hear this. My father passed away unexpectedly last month. It was sudden and devastating. It's something I hope to overcome, but it's been really difficult. Everything you said is true. You don't truly understand until you've been.
Indeed. Thank you for that. I give credit of those comments to my son. He always, I have heard many people be grateful for being able to, share a loss. And I think that that's one of the things that we don't do enough. We don't sit down and talk anymore, Steve. We don't sit down in a circle and connect. And I think that out of this pandemic, we're going to really, really embrace that again. Being with family. Of course, being at home, I call it time out. We got time out at home, and, people say, well, what's a positive about this? I go, well, that you get to know your spouse. Of course, the negative is that you get to know your spouse. But the thing is, just look for what's fun, what's good, check yourselves, what's coming out of you when these squeezing moments happen. And Don't get mad at yourself. Just know that that's just what you have inside right now, but you can change anything and you can do anything. You know what I always wanted? Go ahead, Steve, say, what did you always want? Ask
What
me.
do you always want, Shayla?
Peace. I always prayed. I just wanted to have peace. Peace is a great place to be, because, yeah.
Yes, it is. A couple more comments. Bravo. This was an amazing talk. Thank you so much. Too bad you can't hear all the applause that's going on in the background, Shayla. But this has truly been amazing. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. And what a great way for us to go off to this conference to take on the very difficult task we have of serving those in need. So again, on behalf of everybody who's here today, our board of directors and everybody, thank you so much, Shayla.
My honor. And anybody who wants to reach out to me, please do. Shayla@shaylarivera.com. I'll be glad to do anything I have to. Thank you so much. Thank you, Steve, for giving me this chance. I'm super stoked.
All right, wonderful. And for everybody watching, the next session starts at 10:45. So if you're not in this room number 1, if you're in room 2 through 5, then you will get out of this. And when it's time, you will check in with them about 10 minutes before 10:45, and you can wait there for the next session to begin. So Shayla, again, thank you very much, and we wish you the best.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.